Hi everyone, welcome to the Lunch or Learn session of March on behalf of Women in Tech, the Netherlands. I'm Cristina Garcia, Productivity Engineer at ASML and member of Women in Tech, the Netherlands. Really happy to be here hosting this March session. First of all, sorry for the 5 minutes late. We have a small technical problem, but here we are for this session that we call decentralization. So for this topic, we have a really special guest. His name is Mika Room, and I'm going to introduce Mika before he will pop up in the screen with me. So Mika is a software engineer which has a passion for decentralization and self-sovereignty. He studied computer science in the early 90s in Lausanne and worked most of his career in the big financial organizations before 2015, where he fell in love with blockchain. He has mainly focused his work on self-sovereign identity and how to establish trust between individuals without the need for a central authority. So with this introduction, I would like all of you please to say hi to Mika. And hi, Mika, welcome to the session. It's really a pleasure to have you here today.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to talking to you.
So typically, Mika, what I do is to ask my guest as a first question, what is tech for you, what it means for you, because we are here, Women in Tech, main topic. But when I was talking with you the first time, I feel, oh, this definition of tech, what he's explaining to me is really different to what I typically hear. So I did a twist and I said, okay, let's start by explaining to the audience what means technology for you. And then we can go through it, trying to disseminate and touching the topics. And for sure, I would like to let know all the audience that if they have any questions, any comments, they can write down in the chat and we can go through them later. I hope the streaming is working properly now, but let's see. So, technology for Mika. So he said, for me, technology is the practical application of science, and everyone should understand the scientific process and apply it in their everyday lives to root their decisions in facts and evidence, or at least be conscious about not doing it. This should make them think about where they put their trust and about ways to improve the level of control they have over the sources of trustworthy information they consume, which should lead to a desire to better control the things they create and own, starting with their identity and personal information. And finally, to ponder, if the cost of conveniences is worth the price. So I really think it's a really elaborate and kind of complex definition even. So Mika, I will go for a first question and let's see if we can better understand what technology means for you. So technology is all around us nowadays. So how important is to have the education and the tools to at least be able to understand the principles that are governing its development?
Thank you. I believe it's very important to, as you say, to understand the development process, not necessarily understand the technology itself. Nobody knows how a television works or how the pixels get lightened up in LCD screen, but at least to know that it's based in science. The scientific process that led to the discovery of the things that we use every day is important. When my kids ask me, why do I need to learn math? I tell them, you like to use your mobile phone? Yeah. So try to calculate the um, to say the radiation strength without math. Try to compute anything without math. I mean, it's the foundation and it's very important. And I believe as we go forward, and these days it's a very pertinent topic with Chat GPT. You can ask any question to
Mm-hmm.
Chat GPT and it will give you a very elaborate answer, even if sometimes it's wrong. So that's the nice thing about AI. It is very confident in giving you wrong answers. Um, oh, I see my video stream is. Can you still hear me? Yes.
Yeah, you hear
Okay.
you perfectly.
So I believe that the understanding of the principles is very important, and the parts that facts are more important than feelings, at least in the development of technology, is very important. You cannot say, I feel like my screen is showing me an accurate picture. Yeah, you might feel that way, but it's not true. It's not a fact. And the separation of fact and hunch, and the way we actually measure things, and that it is important to measure things, I think is a fundamental understanding, and we should all agree that it's important and it matters.
But here I will say, I would like to point out, when you mention, I try to explain my kids how, study math so you can understand a phone. But then do you feel there is kind of a disconnection between like how, yeah, like in general, people don't understand all the basics and small pieces you need to reach to, we have hardware in our hands, we can use it.
So you don't have to be able to build it in order
No, of course.
to understand it, but at the very least, if you want to make sure that you can make connections between things and you can use them in an efficient manner, you should understand what they're for, what their limitations are, and and then you can combine things as well. Uh, Many people forget that most of the innovation that happens in our society does not happen through invention, but through combination. So you combine two things that were not meant to be used together, and all of a sudden you have something new that pops up that people have not thought of before. And it is innovation too. It does not need necessarily to be a revolution. Um, Obviously, it makes for a better presentation when you say we will revolutionize the industry of A, B, or C, but incremental improvement is how historically we have progressed more steadily. And in order to be able to progress steadily, we need at least to understand the basics of how things work. We don't necessarily need to be able to build things, but at least to understand that, or to take a very basic example, you need to plug in the electricity cord for your computer to turn on, or uh, you know, why it is bad to discharge a battery to 0%, or things like that. I mean, be a little curious about the thing you use
Yeah.
is probably enough. And I think it's important. And this curiosity is a bit lacking. Is, oh, that's not my problem. Someone else will take care of that. I don't need to worry
Think
myself
about it.
about
Yeah.
it. But then, yeah, go ahead, be curious. And this is how society progresses as well.
Yeah, I think so. And now moving on, when I was reading your definition of tech, but also your introduction, the word self-sovereign pop up different times. So which role plays self-sovereign to mimic this scientific process and be able to root our daily decisions in facts, evidence, and proof?
Mm. Yeah, it's until now, we had to mostly delegate to be able to trust. And what I mean by that is that you go to a lawyer because you trust the lawyer to be honest, and then the lawyer does something for you. And if you have someone else you need to do business with, they trust the lawyer too because they have a law degree, they have this nice diploma on their wall, and it induces trust. Um, we were willing, or we still are willing, to delegate a lot of authority to these trust anchors, so like the lawyer, like the government, etc. The banks are a very good example. Um, because the banks have proven themselves not to be so trustworthy, especially in recent times. I live in Switzerland, and I have been impacted a lot by the meltdown of Credit Suisse.
The last news.
Exactly. So, I mean, banks are a very nice example. And being self-sovereign, what it means is that you take control over the things you do. It is self-sovereignty over your data, self-sovereignty over your identity. These go hand in hand, obviously, because your identity is the data that defines you. It's your name, your picture, your fingerprint, etc. And let's talk about the differences between what we have today, which is delegated management, and what I'm advocating for is self-sovereign management. So in a delegated management system, you have an ID card that has been issued to you by a government. And if the government decides that they want to take this ID card away from you, well, that's what they do. They just take they send over the police takes away your identity card, and voila, you are left without an identity. And this has happened in the past. The Great Britain has stripped, I think, 39 of its citizens of their citizenship because they went to Syria and Iran to join ISIS. I'm not saying that people who join ISIS are nice people. I completely disagree with them. But it's another question, should they be stripped of their citizenship without due process? And I think no, because everyone deserves due process. And so what is the alternative? So the alternative is you have an identity which is digital, and the government can be one of the parties that certifies that this identity is real, is correct, but they don't necessarily need to be the only ones. So the other organization that can certify that your identity is correct can be your family members, can be your friends, can be complete strangers that you have met in a conference that say, yes, I have seen Christina. This is really Christina. I know she is a real person. At the end of the day, this is what matters most. Are you a real person or are you a bot?
Oh, but then here enters a bit the question of how people will use that, because at least myself, I try to think people is good by default, let's say like that, and has good reasons to do things. But then also, I'm pretty sure will be people that will try to cheat on this system. No, like
definitely, yes. The nice thing is that it's digital. It's based in proof, and the main thing is not can you cheat or not, because in every system there is a way to cheat.
Yeah.
It's who holds the keys to your data. And in a self-sovereign system, you hold the keys to your data. You have these 24 words that define your private key, and you can keep those safe, either in your head, where might not be the best place for 24 words, or in a bank safe, or in a hidden place, wherever. Or you delegate it to somebody. But you are in control. And this key is what defines and manages the identity. And so the data that is linked with this key does not need to be stored on any centralized server. It is stored on your computer, your phone, your USB drive, wherever you want. Nobody has access to it if you don't give them access. And that is the very important part. If you want to share your information with someone, that's good, you can. If you don't want, then you don't have to. And with centralized systems, we have seen that with Facebook many, many times.
Yeah.
They control all your data. And if they decide that somebody has paid enough money to get access to it, well, then they give access to it. And there's nothing you can do. In a self-sovereign system, they have to ask each one of you, each one of the users, are you willing to share this data? Yes or no? And if they say yes, well, then they can share the data. But if they don't want to respond or they say no, then the data is not shared. And this is the very important difference. Because can you do bad things? Yes or no? Yes, obviously you can do bad things. You can do bad things with every technology. I mean, the Chinese used black powder to create fireworks, and um, the Europeans used black powder to throw cannon bullets. So you can do many things with the same technology.
Pointing out to the Facebook example, if we go back a few years when all the scandals start, then we start to have these pop-ups every time we open a website, no? Like, are you okay with all the cookies? Do you want to set your preference? So do you think this is literally like let's say, my step, like, okay, I put this so you feel more safe, but I'm the first that sometimes I'm completely lazy to even try to read everything that they are saying in those massive texts that pop up if you want to set your preference, actually. So this is kind of a solution for them to continue be able to doing that.
Yes, I think it's an alibi more than a solution because let's be honest, nobody reads it. Everyone just clicks the biggest button on the screen. This is why the accept button is red and the accept
Yeah.
only essential cookies is gray. I mean, anyways, but this actually has nothing to do with self-sovereignty because it's the legislator who enforces that. And if I don't do it and nobody complains, nothing happens. In a self-sovereign system, it's not that I rely on the law to enforce something, it's that it is not possible to do it if I don't agree. And this is a big difference.
And now moving to one of the other topics you mentioned in your description of technology, you talk about the size of the evidence and facts we need to use, no? So imagine you every day open your phone in the morning, you go to the same newspaper, you open your Instagram, you follow the same people. So at the end of the day, you have a risk that the sample from which you are taking all your knowledge, all your information, your input is not big enough. So how decentralization help here?
I'm not sure decentralization can help all that much because most of this is down to human nature. We,
Okay.
as humans, like to be confirmed in our beliefs. It gives us pleasure. I believe something to be true, and you come along and say, "Yes, Micha, I believe you are right." Then I feel good because I was right. So this echo chamber effect is probably something down to individual choices. But where decentralization can come in and help us is in making the algorithms transparent. So if I use a platform, let's say Twitter, I have no idea how they choose the elements of my feed. I just see stuff, and it is probably done by some AI engine that has studied all my likes and just presents me things that I'm most likely to retweet or most likely to comment on because they want my interaction. And what they also want is that I spend as long as possible on the platform. If we had a decentralized Twitter, which would definitely be possible, it would have at least two big advantages. The first one is I could choose who creates the algorithm to control my feed. The data to fill my feed would still be the same, but the algorithm could be different because it's decentralized, and I could write the algorithm myself. I could just say, I want my feed to be ordered chronologically by the people that I follow. and these are the only people I want to have in my feed. Whereas now I get whatever is served to me. The second thing is it would be impossible to impersonate someone, because if I follow you, Christina, there is a link between the public keys. So I know your public key, and the UI could show me, yes, this is the profile that you followed, which Twitter does not do for me. And there would be no way for another Christina to pop up with the same picture, the same bio, and be just a copy. And so that would be an improvement. So I think
indeed,
decentralization and having self-sovereignty over your user data would be a big improvement in social media indeed. It also has dangers because there would be no way to censor. And sometimes censorship or choosing what data is shown to people is important. We have seen instances of hate speech, instances of instigation of violence on social media that have gone out of hand, and it is dangerous. And this is something that you could not control anymore if it was decentralized and completely self-sovereign, because there would be no authority to come in and select or tame the algorithm for you. So when the echo chamber gets violent, it's tricky. So I don't claim to have all the solutions and all the answers to all the issues. The only thing I'm saying is that there are advantages, but there are obviously disadvantages too. And maybe it just puts more burden on the government to follow all these feeds and to say, ooh, this is something that could go out of hand, and we need to step in, and we need to maybe physically go to this person and tell them, you have to stop this because this is illegal.
At least you have a responsible, no? Like a clear responsible
and
about it.
The other nice thing is there's non-repudiation, which means that if you sign all your messages with your digital identity, there is no way you can say, oh, that wasn't me.
Was not me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now we move to another keyword. Let's see, governance. So if I say governance, it is part also of this puzzle?
Definitely. Governance is an important part of the decentralized world, and the decentralized community has come up with this concept of a decentralized autonomous organization. I kind of disagree with the autonomous part because nothing is really autonomous. It is steered by the people who are part of it. But anyways, and there the governance part is very important. So and I mean, governance is very important in everyday life. If you, I don't know, if you own an apartment in a building, you have to have governance in order to decide, do we fix the elevator or do we paint the facade in red or gray or whatever? So I mean, governance is part of everyday life. What decentralization and self-sovereign identity can help with is to make this governance more efficient and more inclusive. So it makes it
you put
easier
maybe an
to participate.
example that we can
Yes.
follow, like, okay, I see it now.
So if you have your identity on your smartphone and you could vote by phone, I know a lot of people who would participate much more willingly because it's easy, it's convenient. And it would be possible from a technology point of view to fulfill all the criteria to make the vote unique. So you cannot vote multiple times. You can not find out what somebody voted. You cannot force somebody to tell you what they voted for, etc. So all these criteria that are very important in a democratic process could be fulfilled by technology today, and they are not for multiple reasons. But if we go to more out of the government, out of the public space, more to the private space in companies or private organizations, it does also help to be able to delegate your vote in a secure manner. So you don't know everyone, so you could simply say, oh, I trust that Christina will vote in the right way, or in a way that adheres to my beliefs. And so I delegate my vote to you. That's not right, this way, to you. And when you vote twice. You have two votes, or 100 votes, whatever. And this is something that is very difficult to do in an analog way. And if you do in a centralized way, which is also possible, obviously, but then you put your trust in a centralized system, and the admin of the centralized system could just change your vote, which is impossible in a decentralized way. Because you have the signature, nobody can counterfeit your signature, and nobody could counterfeit the fact that I have delegated my vote to you, and all these guarantees and proofs are there. I guess that most people who are not computer scientists have a hard time making the difference between I made an entry in the Google Sheets on Google, and I sent a transaction on the Bitcoin network. It's in both instances, it's an act of adding data to something. But in one instance, in the instance of the Google Sheet, it's data that can be modified by anyone who has permission. And you're not necessarily the one who decides who has permission, so that might be dangerous. And in the Bitcoin example, you have also created new data, but nobody can change it. And this is the important difference. You create immutable data by signing it with your private key, and you're the only one who knows your private key, so you are the only one who can sign it. And this difference between giving somebody the power to change your data, or being the only one who can influence how your data changes, is the big difference between a centralized system and a decentralized and self-sovereign system.
Yeah, I think that was a really simplified way for those that are not computer science to really understand a bit more about that. Thank you for that. And now, Mika, we go for the last question. So it's a bit more general, but I would like to close this conversation looking a bit to the future and more personal feeling. Are you positive or negative about how our relationship with technology is going to evolve as a society?
That's a tough one. I don't know.
Take the ball.
But looking into the crystal ball, I'm not too optimistic when it comes to the future of society and technology, because technology has this tendency of manipulating us and being used to manipulate us. And we need to be very careful about it. And I think that many people don't understand the dangers of technology and don't understand that they need to act in order to counteract the effects of technology. One of the things that hit me, you've read this book, Homo Deus, from Yuval Harari. If you know, well, one of the things he says that in the past, governments needed citizens in order to pay taxes and serve in the military. And in the future, they will be able to get rid of this need to have people serve in the military. And if the state does not need the citizens anymore, why should it have them around? And I think we have not found a good answer for that yet. And nobody's really asking the question. So unless we really ask the question and well, we can find an answer for that as a society, I think, yeah, it might be dangerous. Where I think technology will really help is with global warming. I'm a strong believer that technology will be the way we get out of that. I don't know if we will get out of that fast enough, but technologies are emerging to allow us to actually solve the global warming problem. And if you look at, for example, ocean CO2 sequestration, mineral weathering, accelerated mineral weathering technology, and this kind of things, I think we're on the right path. So in 10, 15 years, we will be able to capture all humans' emissions and yeah, we'll just pay for that and well, be done with it. I see that as the only way out because I don't see us as a society really making the effort to force our governments to take action.
So it's really a positive point of view, for example, for the application in the global warming change. But the long-term general, yeah, I think you open a really deep question, like how we are going to deal with it for the future coming. But Mika, I'm yeah, really happy about this conversation. I really think the topic is pretty different, and I hope the audience is enjoying it. And I would love to have the questions from the people, but I think due to our technical problem, we cannot reach them.
Oh.
So that's, yeah, that's a pity, but I hope they can contact you. They have LinkedIn.
Sure. Exactly. So
So
I'm active on LinkedIn. If you send me a connection
exactly.
request, I'll be happy to accept it and
Exactly.
get the conversation going. I'm a big advocate of CO2 taxes, so putting a price on carbon emissions. So I'll take the opportunity to talk about it here. If next time you vote, be sure to vote for a politician who advocates carbon pricing. And if you don't have anyone in your legislator, then convince someone that it is an important topic.
Nice. So then I would like to close here this session. And as we said, feel free to follow Mika in LinkedIn. Feel free also to follow Women in Tech Netherlands or Global Movement to be aware of the next events. And it has been a pleasure, Mika. And well, hope to see you somewhere in another event maybe, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Christina. It was a real pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.